Can Clemson overcome key injuries on defense? Can Notre Dame overcome a recent past losing big games to elite competition, usually in blowout fashion? Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, here at SG1 College Football to break down the game of the year in the ACC. Number 1 Clemson going to South Bend to take on the number 4 Fighting Irish. Certainly the game that ACC officials anticipated when they allowed Notre Dame to compete this 1 year in the ACC. And there could be a rematch, of course, in Charlotte in the ACC title game. So I'm watching the games last weekend and seeing the score come in time after time as BC mounted a 28-10 lead late in the second quarter in Death Valley, thinking DJ Uiagalelei must be having a rough debut in his first start, down by 18 points. It must be his fault. He must be like 10 for 22 with 3 picks. No. He hit on his first 9 passes, and he was nearly flawless. I'm sure that Clemson missed Trevor Lawrence in a number of ways, but Uiagalelei turned in a tremendous second half, brought Clemson all the way back, finished 31-42 for 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions on the day. The one mesh point issue with Travis Etienne down near the goal line, that was a 14-point swing that was key in BC building that big lead early, but Uiagalelei just ran the offense like a veteran and showed off why he was the number 1 quarterbacking prospect coming out of high school as a 5-star. He can run it, he can throw it, and again, it being his first start, he ran the offense extremely well, didn't lose his poise in a comeback situation down by 18 points. So he seems to be in good shape going to South Bend. He's going to need a little bit more rushing offense out of Travis Etienne. Etienne was the focus against Boston College, and the Eagles shut him down to 11 carries and 29 yards in the first half. Etienne did spring loose a little bit in the second half against BC for 84 yards, 20 carries for the game, but it was almost a replay of the college football playoff game against Ohio State where the Buckeyes shut down Etienne out of his traditional running back spot, but then Clemson got creative and got Etienne out of the backfield on pass routes, and he burned BC 7 times for 140 yards, including the game-winning touchdown reception. Clemson's wide receiver core is super talented, but not playing up to the standards of their predecessors, like the great wide receivers at Clemson over the last 10 years. Frank Latson, Joseph Nagata not living up to their hype. They're having decent seasons, but it's still Amari Rogers is the number 1 guy, 40 receptions and 6 touchdowns. And also Cornell Powell, a little used veteran throughout his career who only came into the game with about 30 career receptions, was targeted 11 times and caught 11 passes for 105 yards from DJ. So we'll see if Cornell Powell continues the upsurge and is a key member of the offense in South Bend. All right. The Clemson defense is the concern right here. Not because they're not talented or good, because when on the field healthy, they might have the best defense in the country. But I will give that title to Georgia for the time being, because Clemson right now misses its leader, his inspiration, the brains on the field. James Skalski is going to miss another game here, but that was pretty much known. The bad news in Dabo Swinney's weekly news conference before the Notre Dame game was that Tyler Davis, best defensive lineman, out with an ankle injury. He was expected back, but he's going to miss the Notre Dame game, as well as outside linebacker Mike Jones with a hammy. So Notre Dame down 3 starters on defense. Against a Notre Dame offense that's been more effective in the last couple of weeks against Pitt and Georgia Tech, after struggling mightily against the likes of Duke and Louisville and others, most notably gaining a lot of attention and criticism in defeating a Louisville team ranked bottom 10 in the nation in defense the last 2 years to the tune of 12-7 at home. Ian Book not getting the ball downfield. He's been proficient in spots, 61%, 7 touchdowns, 1 pick. But basically Notre Dame's been a heavy run team with Kyron Williams, 7 touchdowns and 5.9 yards per carry. The 2 explosive receivers that Notre Dame has on its roster, that were going to be counted upon to raise Notre Dame's level of play on offense and be able to challenge the elite, be one of those components that they needed to close that gap. Kevin Austin, and also Jared Braden Lindsey have been hampered by injuries all season and basically ineffective. Instead, it's been Javon McKinley with 14 catches, and also you got Michael Meyer, the latest in the long list of Notre Dame tight ends with 15 catches. But Notre Dame, though performing better the last 2 games out, not near the proficiency or explosiveness on offense that you would think that they would need against Clemson. But the defense has been rock solid, one of the best in the nation, only giving up 93 yards rushing per game. So it could be tough sledding for Etienne again coming up this week. Clemson, Notre Dame, as we mentioned off the top, the Irish having issues against elite competition. The narrative has been that they always get blown out. Now, that has been the case a number of times. Let's keep in mind and be fair that Notre Dame has challenged the elite teams a number of times as well. They played some close games. So the two that stand out as building the narrative, of course, the 2012 BCS National Championship game against Alabama, in which they were completely blown off the field 28-0 at the half and losing by 4 touchdowns. And then the playoff game against Clemson. In 2018, Notre Dame came in undefeated. Clemson was marching on to a national championship, and Notre Dame was in the game at 6-3 in the second quarter before Clemson started to hit the big plays, and Notre Dame could never mount any offense. And this, unfortunately, looks to be similar from an offensive perspective on the Notre Dame side, trying to gain points and yardage against a Clemson defense than that team in 2018 that lost 30-3. But let's also be fair and keep in mind that Notre Dame went to Georgia last year against a top 5 Bulldogs team and stayed within 1 score in Athens. And then, of course, in 2017, took on a Georgia team that would go on to almost win the national championship game. And the Bulldogs only beat the Irish by 1 point in that one. And then there was a classic game, of course, in Death Valley against Clemson, and Deshaun Watson, the team that went on to the 2015 national championship game and needed a 2-point conversion stop to beat the Irish in Death Valley 24-22. Clemson, Notre Dame, when you weigh it all out, it looks like Clemson's just a little bit too explosive despite missing arguably the best quarterback in college football. DJ should be ready to play. He's gotten the reps in. This is going to be the first road experience, of course, for him in a compromised environment because of the lack of a crowd, because of the COVID guidelines. I like Clemson in this one over Notre Dame. It should be a good one, 30-23. We'll call it with a rematch pending if Notre Dame can stay without another loss. They will get the Tigers again in Charlotte in the ACC championship game. Would love to get your score, your comments, your thoughts about the ACC, and, of course, this one, Clemson, Notre Dame, right here at SG1 College Football. And we will see you next time.